When you enter your fantasy football draft, you should have one goal in mind, and it's really so simple to remember. I bet Tater even knows what it is. Tater, hit me with it.
You want to be sure that you got rhyming running backs. For example, you got Javonte Williams. Go out there and get you Jamal Williams. Williams. Rhymes.
No. Try again. Maybe you'll know it this time. What else you got?
I used ChatGPT to draft an entire fantasy football team. I'm pretty excited about it because my running back one is Eddie Lacy.
Dude, are you serious right now? Are you being serious right now? Be serious about it.
The 1-for-1 rule is that you drink one beer for every one person in your league pre-draft. You got 8 teams in your league, 8 beers. You got 16-man league, buckle up, son.
All right, okay. I thought he was going to take this offseason serious and really start to study, but apparently that didn't happen. What I was really hoping he would say, try to draft at least one top 12 season-ending finisher at each position so you can turbocharge your lineup. So how do you do that? How do you turbocharge your lineup? Well, I'm about to show you some never-before-seen ways to do some player breakdowns. Using data can be fun as long as you're looking at the right things. And when it comes to fantasy football, don't kid yourself. There's a lot of luck involved with being successful in this game, but you can play the percentages. You can play the odds to give yourself the best possible chance at winning. If you've been watching our videos over the last few weeks, you can really tell that we're trying to get you into the right mindset before your fantasy football draft, so then you're prepared to make those good decisions. Because this is a process, right? I mean, you learn what you're supposed to learn, you apply what you've learned in your draft, and then
total world domination!
Dear Lord, no, can we pull his feed already? What I was trying to say before I was interrupted again is you learn the process, you use the process, and you become infinitely better and give yourself that opportunity to win a fantasy football trophy. So let's dive right in, but first, a like goal for you. I'm gonna set today's like goal at 1,000 likes. If we hit it, I'm gonna give a random commenter down below a free 2023 fantasy football draft guide. This draft guide is flying off the virtual shelves right now. If you want one, there's a link down below in the description. But if we can hit 1,000 likes, I'll give one away to somebody down below. But let's go ahead and let's take a look at some of the data that gives us the best possible opportunities to land top 12 players at almost every position. And your mind's going to be blown when I show you some of the teams I drafted after I went through this process. Some straight bangers out there. So here's what I did. I took quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers. I collected data over the last 2 years. Why the last 2 years only? Those are the only 2 seasons we have in which we've played 17 games in a regular season, and I didn't want those 16 game seasons to really skew any numbers in this exercise. So I figured out who were the top 12 guys drafted at each position. Where did they finish at the end of the year? Where was the number 1 player at that position at year's end drafted? In what round? How many players out of that top 12 actually produced top 12 numbers by the end of the year? Which positions busted most frequently? Because if we can really figure out what round is statistically better to draft some of these positions, well, we're not only going to set ourselves up to have a great lineup, but we're going to set ourselves up to try to limit the amount of players that we draft that bust. So here's the quarterback list. You can see we have 2021 and 2022. For 2021, the top 12 quarterbacks that were drafted were Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, Tom Brady, Matthew Stafford, Ryan Tannehill, and Jalen Hurts. Remember, this is 2021. This is where they were drafted. Where did they finish? That's in the column right next to them. And we also see that 10 out of the 12 of them, 83% of them, actually returned top 12 value. So they really weren't a bust. Really, the only 2 guys that bust was Lamar Jackson, who was quarterback 15, and Russell Wilson, who was quarterback 16. This year, though, the number 1 overall quarterback, who was Josh Allen, was drafted in the 3rd round. But what I found super interesting, when you take the top 6 quarterbacks, quarterbacks, and then the quarterbacks 7 through 12, look at their average finish. They were almost identical, 7.2 to 7.8. How about 2022 now? We had Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Dak Prescott, Tom Brady, and Matthew Stafford. Those were the top 12 quarterbacks drafted in 2022. However, last year, only 6 out of the 12 returned top 12 value, only 50%. And the quarterback one, which was Patrick Mahomes, was drafted on average in the 4th round. And then look down below. The average finish of the top 6 to the bottom 6 here, the top 6 finished with a number of 5.8, which means on average, the top 6 quarterbacks that were drafted last year finished inside the top 6. That is exactly what we're looking for. Look at the bottom 6. They had an average finish of 18.3. That tells me that if we want to minimize the bust factor of quarterbacks, we got to take one in the top 6 here. Remember that, right? Because when we average these two together, we can see a success rate of 67%, but the numbers in 2021 really boosting that up. Let's look at running backs now. Running backs is going to get a little bit interesting, and then wait till we hit wide receivers. Your mind's going to be blown. So in 2021, here were the top 12 drafted running backs. We had Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, Zeke Elliott, Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler, Najee Harris, and Antonio Gibson. Out of those 12 running backs, 8 of them returned top 12 value. That is 67%. And the running back one, who this year was Jonathan Taylor, was drafted in the 1st round. So that tells me, all right, not too many running backs are busting early, and the guy who finished number 1 was drafted in the right round. Okay, cool. When we look down at their average finish, the top 6 averaged a finish of 15.8, where the 7 through 12 range had an average finish of 10.2, telling me that the bottom 6 here have a better opportunity to not bust. All right, let's look at 2022 though. In that year, we had Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris, Joe Mixon, DeAndre Swift, Alvin Kamara, Nick Chubb, Saquon Barkley, and Aaron Jones. They were drafted in that order. Out of those names, 7 of the 12 returned top 12 value. 58% of them. The 2-year average, a 63% success rate. So we're not busting running backs as often as they really make it seem in national narratives. But in 2022, the average finish between the top and the bottom 6 was a lot closer than it was in 2021. The difference of only maybe around 1 spot or so, from 10.8 in the top 6 to 12 in the bottom 6. But regardless, it still tells me that the bottom 6, running back 7 through 12, over the last 2 years, have an average finish of 12th overall, which means if you can get someone in that range, you have a great opportunity of landing a top 12 running back. That's what we're looking for, a lot of top 12. Let's move to wide receivers now. Are you with me here? Are you seeing what I'm seeing here? All right, perfect. Let's continue. For wide receivers in 2021, we had Davante Adams, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, DK Metcalf, Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown, Keenan Allen, Terry McLaurin, Allen Robinson, and CeeDee Lamb. In 2021, only 5 of those 12 returned top 12 value for an average of only 42%. The number 1 was drafted in the 4th round. That's kind of telling, right? I thought wide receivers were safer early, right? But what I found super crazy here is look at the average finish, right? And sure, this is going to be skewed in 2021 by Calvin Ridley. However, the top 6 wide receivers and the wide receivers in that 7 to 12 range had an average finish of 29th overall. So not only were the wide receivers busting more often, but when they bust, they're busting bigger. That's a problem. All right, what about 2022? We have Jefferson, Kupp, Chase, Davante Adams, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, Deebo Samuel, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, AJ Brown, Michael Pittman, and Keenan Allen. Those are the 12 that were drafted in order just last season. 7 of the 12 finished inside the top 12 overall. A slight improvement, 58%. And the number 1 guy was Justin Jefferson. He was drafted in the 1st round. But look at these overall finishes now. The top 6 is becoming a lot more solidified. They had an average finish of 8.2 and a bottom 6 finish here of 21.8. However, overall, over the last 2 years, only a 50% success rate. That's telling me that wide receivers are busting more frequently early than running backs, which is not what we hear all over the place. So let's take all this information and let's kind of recap a little bit and see what we can make of all of this. And really, this is what I'm seeing aside from the fact that wide receivers are busting more than running backs. I also see the top 6 wide receivers have a better chance of succeeding and being a top 12 wide receiver than the wide receivers in that 7 to 12 range. Even though the difference was minuscule in 2021, it still said the same exact thing. So I need to have a top 6 wide receiver, right? That's going to give me the best opportunity at a top 12 guy, at least one at that position. I then see that running backs 7 through 12 have a higher average finish over the last 2 years than the top 6 overall running backs ahead of them. Now that's pretty crazy, but understandable, right? The number 1 running back has now busted in back-to-back years with McCaffrey 2 years ago and then Jonathan Taylor just last season. So I need a top 6 wide receiver and I need a running back somewhere in that 6 to 12 range. Got it. Okay, let's continue to go on, because we're going to go on to quarterback now. And as we can see, the past couple of years, the early quarterbacks are starting to creep back up into fantasy football, with the quarterback one now being drafted the last 2 years in the 3rd to 4th round. We also see that over the last 2 years that the top 6 quarterbacks have an average finish inside the top 6. Well, that's exactly what we want. So we're going to make sure we need to nail a top 6 quarterback as well. So how do we do that? How do we accomplish everything we just talked about? Well, here is a list of my current top 6 quarterbacks, because we need one of these guys. Here's my current top 6 wide receivers, because this is the group we need somebody from. And here are my current running backs ranked in that 7 to 12 range. For quarterback, we got Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Justin Fields, and Justin Herbert. At running back, we have Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Ramondre Stevenson season part due this year. We got Tony Pollard, Aaron Jones, Najee Harris. At wide receiver, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, and CeeDee Lamb. Now, you may be asking, why didn't we include tight ends? And honestly, in order to land a top 12 tight end, we just need somebody with a damn pulse and a few targets a week that plays 15 plus games, and we should be okay there. After Travis Kelce is gone, it's basically a crapshoot anyway. But we need one of those quarterbacks, and as many as we can possibly get as a mixture of these running backs and wide receivers. But I'm not telling you anything new here. When you see these names, these are obviously names that you want. It's all about the location in which we're selecting them to try to minimize the bust factor, right? Because we don't want bust. We're trying to find the guys that give us the best opportunity to have the highest scoring teams each and every week. So I went through and I kind of used this strategy with these names, and I did a bunch of mock draft simulations to try to see how many combinations could I really get of these players. And honestly, the way the teams turned out was pretty freaking interesting, to say the least. I mean, look at this team. This was done from the 1st overall pick. We got Justin Fields, Najee Harris, Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson, DJ Moore, the stack there with Fields and Moore. Tyler Higbee, going to get a lot of targets. Isaiah Pacheco, a huge breakout opportunity right there for him in Kansas City this year as the flex, a top defense, a top kicker. Pittman, Cooks, Gibson, Sky Moore, Jalen Warren, and Cole Kmet on the bench. I'll take this for a 1st overall team. You can see we ended up with a top 6 quarterback. We ended up with a top 6 wide receiver. And in this situation, we ended up with 2 of the running backs in that 7 to 12 range with Aaron Jones and Najee Harris. So we got 4 guys in this lineup. Next up, this was from the 9th overall pick. We got Justin Herbert, Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, Stephon Diggs, Chris Olave, Darren Waller, Isaiah Pacheco in the flex again. Another solid defense and kicker with Addison, Harris, Jacoby Myers, David Njoku, Zeke Elliott, and Pierre Strong on the bench. This is out of the 9 hole. So we ended with our top quarterback in Justin Herbert. We got our top 6 guy locked up right there. What about the running backs? Well, we got one of them, right? We got Josh Jacobs. He was in our list to get. And then wide receiver, we have Stephon Diggs. but we also paired it up with some guys with some huge upside this year. Miles Sanders has an opportunity to explode in Carolina. Chris Olave, so many people's breakout wide receiver in 2023. Darren Waller, gonna get peppered with red zone targets. This team could be lethal. How about this one? This was from the 6th hole. We have Josh Allen, Tony Pollard, Alexander Mattison, Tyreek Hill, Terry McLaurin, Darren Waller, Brandon Ayuk, another solid defense and kicker, Damian Harris, Jamal Williams, Adam Thielen, Sky Moore, Kareem Hunt, and Dalton Kincaid. So we got our quarterback. What about running backs? Well, we got one in there with Tony Pollard. At wide receiver, we got one right there with Tyreek Hill. And then we have some guys with upside. Madison, McLaurin, Waller, Ayuk, Damian Harris, a name that we've been talking about a lot. What if Alvin Kamara is suspended and we still have Jamal Williams on our bench? Lots of opportunities here. And then what about this guy? The 3rd pick. We got Joe Shiesty, Joe Burrow. We got Derrick Henry, Ramondre Stevenson, Jamar Chase, Keenan Allen, Evan Ingram, Michael Pittman. Another, once again, solid defense and kicker. A.J. Dillon, Juju Smith-Schuster, Nico Collins, David Njoku, Pierre Strong, and Jerome Ford. So we got our quarterback. We have Henry and Stevenson, so we got 2 running backs in there, and Jamar Chase. Another one of those options where we had 4 of those guys in this lineup right here. But I also did one, I guess, from the 11 hole as well. Another team with Joe Burrow, Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, Stephon Diggs, Terry McLaurin, Dallas Goedert, Mike Evans. We got the Niners and Tucker. Solid combination again with Kamara, Harris Collins, the Muth, Paris Campbell, and Van Jefferson on the bench. Another team stacked with talent and upside. I was very pleased to get the teams that I did by following this strategy of being sure to get the guys in the right rounds. Now, I am by all means not saying that you pass on elite talent. Obviously, if a Travis Kelce is sitting there, that's going to skew things a little bit. But the quarterback position is where you get a little bit of wiggle room this year. So take advantage of it. You don't have to have an Allen or a Hurts. There's going to be opportunities for people this year to get a Fields or a Herbert in the 4th, maybe even the 5th round. Maybe the same with Joe Burrow. That would really afford you the opportunity to land more skill position guys early. This is just something that I wanted to throw out there to you guys so you had as a way to approach your draft. How can I build an overall great lineup? How do I put myself in a position to build a high scoring team? It's things like this to pay attention to that give you that opportunity. But it's really exercises like this that are great to do. If you're really trying to get better at fantasy football, you need to train your mind what to look for during your fantasy football drafts, and trying to find guys like this in certain areas, in certain spots. We're trying to dip into that honey hole. I've said honey hole now 2 weeks in a row on the internet. That may be illegal in some countries. However, I'm telling you, this is just one of those situations that really put together a solid team for you. We did an exercise last week that really showed how a combination of players is going to be better all the time than 0 running back or 0 wide receiver or heavy one way or the other. A balanced approach is best, and trying to nail guys like this give you a great opportunity for a great team here in 2023. But do me a favor, if you enjoyed the content here today, hit that like button, right? We have a goal of 1,000 likes on this video to give away a draft guide to somebody down below in the comment section. Looking forward to doing that here pretty soon. But for now, hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day and do your part to make the world a better place.